Hello world, Cossy here with this week's roundup of geek movie news. Starting off with, as you can see behind me, Arrested Development. Now, Arrested Development, for those of you who don't know, was a very successful, especially critically, comedy series that was cancelled about 5-6 years ago. It is now being made into a feature film. Now, Mitchell Horowitz, the guy who was the creator of the show, he has come out and stated that he's got the ensemble cast back together to make this film. It will be preceded by a shortened 10-episode TV series to fill in what's been happening with the characters since the cancellation of the show 5 or 6 years ago. For me, this is great news. I am a huge Arrested Development fan. I have all the series on DVD. It's one of those series that you can keep watching again and again and again, and you keep noticing new things. If you haven't seen it, you've got plenty of time before the movie comes out. It's fairly cheap to pick up on DVD now. I do really think that you should go out, pick these up, watch them. Fantastic show, very, very funny. Lots of in-jokes that follow on into episodes, especially for those fans who stick with it and stuck with it in the past. So yeah, fantastic. Just want this to happen ASAP. Get this film made, get it out there, get this new shortened 10-episode TV series out there. It's a fantastic show. It'll hopefully be a fantastic film. Arrested Development coming to cinemas in the near future. Next up, some Universal Soldier news. Now, Universal Soldier has been picked up by Fremantle Media and Entertainment. That's the company that makes American Idol and The Price is Right in the USA, and they are going to develop it as a TV series. Now, the TV series is going to be written by Sanctuary and Stargate writer Damien Kindler. He's going to be plotting the entire series and writing some of the episodes. So, positive news for those who are fans of Universal Soldier. This obviously follows on from the fact that there's going to be a 4th official instalment in the movie franchise called Universal Soldier: A New Dimension, the first of the movies to be shot in 3D. It will star once again Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren, and also adds Scott Adkins into the mix. Now, there's no news on whether the movie and the TV series will follow each other, as in they will link into each other, but I think it would be positive if they did. Obviously, it would introduce new fans to the series through the TV show and then link them into the film, maybe get them interested in going back and watching the other instalments, at least the 3 official instalments of the movie franchise. So yeah, good news if you're a fan of Universal Soldier. Okay guys, some Rogue Trooper news this week. Now, an interview with legendary Scottish comic book writer Grant Morrison has apparently said that he is involved in writing the script for the Rogue Trooper movie. Now, for those of you who don't know much about Rogue Trooper, he is a comic book character from 2000 AD, the British comic book science fiction series, and he's one of their most popular characters that's never really been adapted for much in the way of media, with the exception of a video game about 5 or 6 years back. Now, there's no confirmed quote from this interview with the Daily Record, just that apparently Grant Morrison mentioned he would be involved in making this movie. Sam Worthington's production company is apparently also involved, and I think this is about time. As a fan of 2000 AD growing up, it's about time we saw some of the other characters besides Judge Dredd make some leeway onto the big screen. If this works, there are plenty of other characters in their back catalogue that they can be sold onto movie rights and could be very, very successful. So let's wait and see. Maybe this is a step in the right direction for all you fans of 2000 AD. But apparently Grant Morrison could be involved with writing the script for Rogue Trooper. Next up, we've got some news about Superior. Now, for those of you who don't know, Superior is a comic book written by British writer Mark Millar. He's the guy who brought us Kick-Ass. And basically it's about a kid who has MS. He gets one wish and he wishes that he can become a superhero. Now, he is apparently, Mark Millar that is, offered this to Matthew Vaughn. Matthew Vaughn, of course, worked very closely with Mark Millar on adapting and directing the Kick-Ass movie, and will be involved in some way in Kick-Ass 2. So they have a history of collaborating that has been successful on the big screen, and they are very, very close friends. Now, you may just think this is another cash-in for, you know, a comic book series onto the big screen, but this character, Miller, co-owns with the MS Society. So any profits that get made from obviously selling the comic book, the graphic novels, and probably the film will go on to help fund research into multiple sclerosis. So, you know, Miller's not all a bad guy. Not everyone involved in comics just wants the money. Just saying. Big news next on the DC Nation front. Now, for those of you who don't know, DC Nation is going to be a new cartoon block on the Cartoon Network. And it was announced last week that joining Young Justice and the Green Lantern animated series next year will be a new CGI animated Batman series. Now, this series is going to focus on a wider variety, apparently, of Batman villains, including people like Professor Pig, who was in the very recent Grant Morrison Batman and Robin books. They are going to be included, you know, to maybe bring it more a little bit up to date. You won't, however, see guys like Robin and Nightwing. Instead, his sidekicks are going to be a gun-wielding Alfred, which to me seems very, very strange, and Katana, who obviously Batman has a history with from The Outsiders. Now, I'm a massive fan of Batman the Animated Series from the 1990s, especially the fact it was dark, it was a little bit more gritty for a kid's cartoon, it stayed very truthful and faithful to the characters from the comic book. And to see Alfred wielding guns and Katana instead of Nightwing or one of the Robins seems very strange to me. Maybe it is just me, maybe it's because I am a massive Batman fan, but I would have at least tried to stick a little bit more to what people expect when they read the comic book, especially if you're going to introduce a new audience to this character or to other characters in the Batman universe. It will possibly be more difficult for someone coming from this animated series to the comic books, unlike when I grew up, and because of the links it was a lot easier to pick up what was going on with the different characters in the actual comic book itself. This isn't the only news. There's also going to be some actual short animations and some claymations that will be seen in this animation block. They're going to feature characters like Plastic Man, Doom Patrol, Supergirl, Wonder Girl, and little known about them as of yet, but this has been announced. It's obviously a big step for DC into challenging Marvel's dominance in various types of media, and it's a good sign. Hopefully we get a high quality product, and I've got fingers crossed that this Batman series isn't terrible, because, you know, every Batman animated series has been at least enjoyable, if not excellent. Okay guys, looks like another legendary TV show is going to get the big budget reboot treatment, and that TV show is Perry Mason. Now, Perry Mason, obviously a legendary TV show from the 50s and 60s, had a lot of TV movies based on it throughout the 1970s, 80s and 90s. It featured very famously Raymond Burr, who you may also remember from Ironside. And yeah, it's got a cult following, especially amongst in the UK students, because it's been shown a lot of the time in that lovely afternoon slot, which has featured shows like Diagnosis Murder and Murder, She Wrote and Quincy. So yeah, it has a cult following and a very, very hardcore following in the States. But they are going to reboot this franchise as a movie, and apparently Robert Downey Jr. will be playing Perry Mason. Now, from what I have read, they're going to go for a more sort of 1930s, very much like the novels which Perry Mason, the character, came from, storyline, with Mason obviously being this hard-hitting lawyer in the 1930s American justice system. I think this is a great idea, not trying to hark back to the TV show, which was hugely successful, trying to go more with a basic sort of plot lines from the novels. It will hopefully lead to less comparisons being drawn by the two, and allow this hopefully successful film franchise to flourish, even though it is a reboot of an old TV show. So I guess we're going to have to wait and see, but Robert Downey Jr. is a fantastic actor. I can see him really fitting this role well, and I'm excited as a fan of the original series to see what they can do with Perry Mason as a feature film. Okay, some news this week for a comic book franchise you might not have heard of before, and that is Fort, Prophet of the Unexplained. Now, Universal Pictures have picked up the movie rights to this comic book series from Dark Horse. It's a comic book series that, if you haven't read it, it follows an actual real person, an author and paranormal investigator called Charles Fort, and it basically looks at him investigating aliens and murderers and missing people in 19th century New York City. Now, for me, this is a very, very interesting premise, very different from what you would expect from a comic book franchise. Obviously, casting a real-life person, an actual person, as a supernatural investigator and crime sleuth in the 19th century could be very, very interesting seeing this on the big screen. We're going to wait and see when more comes out about casting and directors and the such and the like. I will obviously let you guys know, but until then, I guess we're just going to have to see what Universal Pictures does with this franchise. Okay, some Two Guns news this week, and that is that the director, Baltasar Kormacor, he is in negotiations to direct this movie and re-team with actor-producer Mark Wahlberg. I talked about this comic book franchise from Boom Studios a couple of weeks back. Very interesting premise. Wahlberg and Kormacor have worked together before on the upcoming Contraband movie, and if they've been successful before, hopefully they can bring this success to this franchise. Fingers crossed. Wahlberg fits in very well as a cop or a sort of army special agent. It's the kind of character that fits the way he acts, and if he's got a director that knows how to work with him, then this is only going to be a positive for the franchise. Okay, some news, guys, finally on I, Frankenstein. Now, this is Lionsgate's new take on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It will be starring Aaron Eckhart as Adam Frankenstein, the monster from the Frankenstein novel, who has survived up until the modern day due to a genetic quirk and is living a relatively normal life in the modern world. I think this is a very, very interesting take on the Frankenstein mythos. There's a lot of Frankenstein movies being made or are in production at the moment, and for me this one sounds the most interesting. It's just a completely different idea of the monster and what's happened to him, maybe showing what could happen to a Frankenstein's monster, this Adam Frankenstein character, in the modern day. No other casting news as of yet, and no director as of yet, but once I know, guys, as always, I'm going to pass that information on to you. Well, that's all for this week's Geek Movie News. As always, you know where the like button is. It's just down there. If you liked this, click on it, let me know. Subscribe to my channel so you can get all your latest Geek Movie reviews and Geek Movie News, as well as maybe some upcoming different things. I've got some things in the pipeline. Down there is also the comment box if you want to leave me some comments. If you want to let me know some stories that you found out about that you think I should feature in next week's Geek Movie News, by all means do that. This is your show, guys. You let me know what you want me to cover. In the drop down box, once that drops down and you click on it, there is a link to my Facebook fan site. You can go on there, you can click on it, you can like it, and you can follow me on Facebook and find out what's going on in the world of Geek Movie News, when my next video is coming up, and maybe a little bit about everything else that's going on in the world of this channel. Last week's Geek Movie News is here, so you can click out and watch that. My last actual Geek Movie reviews are going to be there and there. Click out, watch them, see what you think. So maybe you've got something to say about those. Who knows? On my face here is a nice subscribe button, so you can click on there and subscribe straight to my channel. Until next time, everyone, au revoir.